Some more NBA playoff coverage for you on the rundown with Victor Tree, Justin Moser, Jason Rubin, brought to you by TYT Sports and the postgame, the most underrated NBA playoff players thus far. We can sit here all day and talk about how awesome it is to watch Steph Curry play basketball, or Chris Paul, or LeBron James, or Kyrie Irving. But we need to talk about what's happening behind the scenes and who's really giving teams the spark. Last year, Kawhi Leonard, all NBA playoffs long. Extremely underrated until he got the little award, NBA Finals MVP, on a team with Manu and Tim, of course, and Tony Parker, and and Boris Diaw, for sake. But in terms of the underrated players so far, we did a clip mostly about Mike Conley, so we can leave him on the board considering he did have an unbelievable Game 2 and has had an unbelievable NBA playoffs thus far. But Victor, we'll start with you on this one. Who do you have as the most underrated player in the NBA playoffs?
I was sizing that up, and I'm going to go with Dunleavy with Chicago just because he's been around for a little bit. He was such a high draft pick with Golden State, a lot of expectations, different teams, and he's kind of settled into a nice role. So he's obviously not one of the marquee guys in Chicago, but plays a very valuable role in their success. So I think he's overlooked a little bit just because some people are saying, this guy's still in the league.
No,
He was drafted, way back when. But he is still in the league, and he's making a very important contribution to the Bulls making a run this year.
One more thing I'll say about Dunleavy. He's
Wait, what? Are you a Chicago fan?
I'm a Chicago Bulls fan. He's historically been one of the dirtiest players in the NBA. But and everyone saw when Giannis tackled him. But Dunleavy was throwing elbows and chipping at people, and you hate him if he's not on your team. But he's just getting in other teams' heads, and you don't expect a guy from Duke to really have that persona. But he has, and he also can shoot the three. He's not one of the top 7 best players on the Bulls, but he scores. So
I precisely expect players from Duke to have that exact persona. Let's not forget what J.J. Redick did when he lit up UNC at UNC, basically flipping off the crowd after going, I believe, 7 of 10 from three-point land.
That's Christian Laettner, the stomp.
Right, of course. Christian Laettner, if we go back to that point, too, yeah, that's the Duke mantra, in my opinion.
I take that back.
How could you say anything good about Duke? They beat Wisconsin. They killed our team.
Dunleavy's on my team.
I get it. Fair enough. It's pulling at the heartstrings. We get it. So I know, Vic, you had Dunleavy. Did you also have Dunleavy?
I have someone else I'm going to put in there. And I think the casual basketball fan would have no idea who this was if it weren't for the most amazing Shaqtin' a Fool I've ever seen. Hopefully you can put it in the comments. Otto Porter. Yeah. There was a play earlier this year where he was guarding somebody, and he just stood there and let them run around him for 3 seconds. It's hilarious. Definitely put it in the comments. But this guy was a lottery pick. He was the 3rd pick overall in the 2013 draft, and
Pittsburgh.
Nobody would know who he is. He scored 6 points and averaged 3 rebounds a game in the regular season. Right now for the Wizards, who I think are the best story in the playoffs, other than maybe the Clippers topping the former NBA champs. He's averaging 10 points, 8 rebounds a game. That is huge production for a team that is really lacking somebody in that position. Paul Pierce, is one of the best shooters in the game ever, but. He's helping out on the board. He's helping out with way more production than he was in the regular season.
The biggest shame from the 2015 NBA playoffs is that if the Wizards make the Eastern Conference Finals, 90% of the country is going to believe that Randy Whitman is a great basketball coach. Do yourselves a favor, people. Do not believe it. He's easily the worst coach in the league, or at least in the bottom 3.
In 10 years, we're going to be talking about him like Popovich.
Right. I'm sure. Actually, I say that about Eric Spoelstra. I think in 10 years, we'll be talking about Spoelstra as Popovich because he's got the experience at a young age to become a fantastic coach in his elderly years. Hopefully, he takes on the Popovich persona of not answering questions, or at least answering them in a very honest way.
Yep.
He should grow a good beard.
Great beard. Also, good suit choice. I'll give him that. Some style coming from Pop. But in terms of myself, I had 2 guys that absolutely need to be mentioned. DeMarre Carroll for the Hawks right now has a PER rating that is combatant with LeBron James. They're both hovering at 21.5. Now, no, America and the rest of the world, because we're on YouTube, I don't think that DeMarre Carroll's as good as LeBron James. But in terms of what he's done for the Hawks thus far, as my pen gets dropped to the ground, 18.9 points, 6.5 rebounds, 55% from the field, Mostly because he's terrifying looking, and if I had to guard that guy, I'd just probably run the other direction as fast as I can.
Come on, take a charge.
Yeah, take a charge from that? Not a chance.
No way.
Not a chance. But he really has been a huge spark in the no-name Hawks offense, and I don't say no-name in the derogatory way. Jeff Teague was an all-star, Paul Millsap. They have Kyle Korver, who I praised all year long, although for whatever reason, can't seem
it's
to
not
be.
His playoffs.
It's not his playoffs. It really isn't. For a guy who was going to be the first ever 90, 50 NBA player of all time, fell way short of that goal with, I think, 90, 46, 45. So the second half of his season, of course, going to the playoffs was not nearly as great as his first half, which proves one of our hosts on TYT Sports, Ben Mankwitz's point that the first half of the regular season doesn't matter. Although I like watching it. Leandro Barbosa, by the way, my other guy that I need to mention.
Brazilian blur.
Thank you. So happy you mentioned that. What has the Brazilian blur been doing for the Warriors this year?
He's been blurring past people. The guy is in his 30s and he's like one of the fastest people in the NBA still. It's unbelievable the production he's having off the bench for the Warriors.
And that's a huge thing because the Warriors' second team with Spates, Brazilian blur. I'm missing Harrison Barnes, who does start half the time too, but again, a UNC.
Iguodala.
Iggy, who really made one quick point about the Warriors game. Iguodala made the best pass of his career when he dished it out to the Brazilian blur for a 3 during that game when he was getting bodied up by Zach Randolph, and I think Gasol was coming over for a double team, which, I mean, you're going Iguodala, who thinks he's still 20 years old and can basically jump over these guys. Probably the smartest move I've seen Iggy make in a long time, at least since he played with the Drew Holiday on the 76ers when they were trying to make runs 3 years ago in the NBA playoffs. But Barbosa is also shooting 50% from the field, 80% from the free throw line. I say it during March Madness, and I say it during the NBA playoffs. Make your fucking free throws, people. It's easy. It's free. If you're not named DeAndre Jordan, no
or
excuse.
anyone on the Houston Rockets.
John, real quick, I want to mention that often a chance for future free agents to earn big if they have a great playoff. So players like DeMarre Carroll, if he were a free agent next year based off his performance, do you think it's a good idea to spend a ton of money on players like DeMarre Carroll after having a great playoffs, or do you think it's a terrible idea? Real quick.
Jerome James.
Great answer.
You know, I really wanted Lance Stevenson to sign with the Bulls in free agency, but man, am I glad we got Pau Gasol. I mean, like, that guy, I mean, he flopped so hard. There's not a big enough sample size to really sign people who had a great playoffs, and it's just not worth it for your team.
That's the exact right way to put it. So is yours. Sample size. It all comes down to sample size. So we got to get to that point as well. Leave us your thoughts in the comment section below. This has been The Rundown, been in partnership with the Postgame and TYT Sports. Make sure to check out thepostgame.com as well as their YouTube channel, and we'll come over to TYT Sports for some more. We can cover everything at this point. Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe. Did I say it 5 times? Does it even matter? Victor, Justin, Jason, we'll see you next time.